Holliston School Committee meeting. Pursuant to the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 20, as well as the Select Board's emergency order dated March 16th, 2020, the Holliston School Committee will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the HCAT webpage within 24 hours in accordance with the governor's emergency action requirement of keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I ask that all participants remotely attending this meeting please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak through the meeting. At this time, I will do a roll call attendance. Ms. Hansted?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes, yeah.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Present.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Hello, yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Here.
Ms. Koshin?
Present.
Mrs. Raffi? Present. At this time, I will take a motion to approve and participate in remote participation meeting.
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Joan.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Joan. All in favor? Ms. Hansted?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi? Yes. Okay. First up on the agenda, we are going to approve our minutes from the following school committee meetings. The first one, May 7th, 2020, our regular session. Are there any questions, comments, or updates that need to be made? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the May 7th, 2020 regular session minutes?
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Andy.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Andy. All in favor? Ms. Hansted?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. May 7th, 2020, executive session number 1. I'm looking for a motion to approve and retain these minutes. Are there any questions or comments? None? Is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Cynthia.
Seconded by Joan.
Moved by Cynthia, seconded by Joan. All in favor? Ms. Hansted?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
I don't see these. I didn't review these. I don't see them in the packet. So I'll abstain.
Okay. Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. Okay. Abstain. Hold on. May 7th, 2020, executive session number 2. Are there any questions, comments, updates to be made? Is there a motion to approve?
Anne Louise, motion to approve.
Seconded by Joan.
Moved by Anne Louise, seconded by Joan. All in favor? Ms. Hansted?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Abstain.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Mrs. Fee? Great. Thank you. Okay. Applications. School committee individual comment. Does anybody have individual comment instead of going through all the faces? Just raise your hand if you do. Ms. Naborski?
Very briefly, I just wanted to bring up that the high school will be putting on a production of Much Ado About Nothing, and that is coordinated with the drama director, I think Mrs. Courtney Bottomley. It's going to be a virtual presentation, but it was originally going to be live on the stage, and it has been converted into a virtual presentation. I believe the high school has started their Art Saves Lives presentation, and that is also moved online. I wanted to say a big thank you to the middle school art club, which reached out to the art club students and allowed them each year for 7th and 8th grade, they're allowed to do a very large mural. It's probably something like 4 foot by 5 foot, about 4 feet tall, and they get hung up in the middle school. They were mid-project and they coordinated a curbside pickup of those. So Art Club continues at the middle school. And then finally at our Miller School, Mrs. Sarah Peters has coordinated a virtual production of the 5th grade variety show. It is We're All in This Together. And they had their first meeting today, their first Zoom meeting. And they'll be doing a song and a dance to We're All in This Together and putting on their shows. And I believe that will be ready by the middle of June. So thank you. Thank you to all of the teachers who are continuing to find a way to connect with our students and provide the high school drama program, the art club, the Art Saves Lives, and the 5th grade variety show virtually. Thank you.
Mrs. Listovnik?
I was actually just going to share about the Art Saves Lives, the same things that Dawn just shared about. So thanks.
Any other school committee members?
What about the students?
Yeah, they're next. Anybody else? Okay, Mary and Anya, great to see you.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi.
I don't think we have anything new to share besides what's already been said, but I think all the schools are doing a great job.
Great. It's great to see you tonight. Okay, central office. Brad?
I'm good. I was going to talk about Art Saves Lives too, but y'all beat me to it, which I'm glad. Enjoy it. It's tonight's the night that it traditionally opens, always on a school committee meeting night. So everything's up on the website, and I encourage people, not only the school committee, but members of the community to access it. You can access it through the Holliston High School website directly.
Sorry, Peter?
I'm all set for tonight.
Keith?
I'm good.
Okay. So we're going to move into public comment. I am aware of 3 people who have dialed in to make public comment. And so Keith's going to work his magic. I believe the first one is Mrs. Cachone.
Oh, no, you're wrong. The first one, sorry. The first one I have is from 617. 617, are you in? 617. I admitted her. All right, we'll go to the next one. We'll come back to 617.
Well, their mute button is on.
Oh, you're right. I can force an unmute. Okay. 617, go ahead. Please identify yourself.
Hello. My name is Chrissy Chestnut.
Go ahead, Chrissy. Welcome.
Okay, hi. Thank you. Hello. My name is Chrissy Chestnut, and I'm a physics teacher at Holliston High School, a mother of 2 children in our school system, and a loyal resident of the town of Holliston. I wanted to speak tonight to let the school committee know that there are several teachers in our community who are offering their support as you begin the difficult process of planning for the reopening of schools this fall. I come to you tonight to request that teachers be given an opportunity to be a part of the school reopening team from the earliest stages of planning. Our teachers have many different areas of expertise that will aid in the school reopening. To name a few, we have teachers that can create professional AutoCAD layouts for each classroom in the district. These plans can show typical desk sizes with social distancing offsets included. The plans can also quickly be revised based on changing requirements, scenarios, and conditions. There are teachers with PhDs in neuroscience who have studied how young minds learn that can use their knowledge to optimize all hybrid learning models based on data and years of research. and teachers that are experts in early childhood education that are able to inspire children to write poetry, dance around the house, and solve difficult math problems all over a Zoom call. Thank you to Mrs. Acker for that. Teachers will provide the committee with direct feedback about which remote learning models have worked and which we can improve, so we can move forward this fall with a very consistent and very clear message to our students. We can coordinate equipment ordering so that all schools are ordering with a hybrid school model in mind. For example, ordering lab equipment and art supplies that students can use safely and effectively at home. Most importantly, we pride ourselves in the relationships that we have and will continue to build with your children. Because of these relationships, we know how to provide the best environment to open their minds to learning. Our life work is to make sure your children feel achieved, supported, and knowledgeable. We want to guide them through this difficult time in order to see it as an opportunity for change, empathy, and tenacity. Thank you for hearing my comments tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Chestnut. And I speak from the committee when I say that we absolutely are in awe of all of the dedication and hard work that's been going on for always, but in particular for the past 8 weeks. So thank you. Keith, do you want to, I don't know who the next one is, so you can.
I got it. And just so everybody knows, 'cause I know you're giving a bunch of thumbs ups and things like that. They're on a phone, so they can't see you. So next on the list is 9.
Everybody watching can.
Okay, fine. 912, you are next. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Amanda Rivera. I am a chemistry teacher at Holliston High School. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, it's a little weird with Zoom and a blank phone. I don't know why I put on makeup if I didn't have to show my face. So thank you for that. Good evening. My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm a chemistry teacher at Holliston High School. I am not nearly as succinct or as eloquent as my colleague Chrissy, so thank you, Chrissy, for being here tonight as well. I would like to thank the school committee and administration for the immense amount of difficult work you are doing to serve our students and community. I know that the planning ahead of us is unfathomably complex. I commend you for moving forward with a task force even before we have explicit guidance from the state. There's an Army saying that we used to use that says, and please excuse my language, that prior planning prevents piss poor performance. So thank you for starting these conversations now. I would like to offer my help as a teacher on that task force from the outset. I want to make explicit that I am not looking to serve in any capacity on issues surrounding contract negotiations or working conditions. I trust that all parties already involved in that work will find a way to collaborate successfully. I hope to serve on this task force alongside my colleagues from all schools as subject matter experts on teaching and learning in the classroom. And while not yet as experts, but as key participants with our students in the past 2 months of teaching and learning remotely. When I saw the list of initial topics to be considered by the task force, I realized that I had had numerous hits and misses on almost all of those fronts. I wanted to share a small sample of my experiences, and I am eager for the experiences of other teachers to be heard and considered in the planning moving forward. Regarding student and staff schedules, after some painfully silent Zoom sessions with many blacked out screens, I knew I needed a small group environment to get the kids more comfortable, some of whom I was meeting for the first time online. And before you say, Amanda, have you tried breakout rooms? Yes, of course I did. But breakout rooms with the whole class required me to bounce between them. And when I did, I came across students awkwardly staring at one another or working individually, waiting for me to just pop in. If you think teens are weird because they won't actually talk to each other on the phone, wait until you see them in a Zoom room. What it took, especially with my younger classes, was me being there with them for 15 to 20 minutes in small groups to guide and probe, prompt, and listen. But that left my other groups hanging, and I definitely didn't have enough time to spend 20 minutes with each group. I found myself wishing for one long block a week where I could have students come to their small group session at their assigned time within that block. Much like you would have your large group lecture in college and then meet with your TA in small groups later in the week. I am not here to say that this little schedule tweak would solve all problems for all teachers and students, but I guarantee that teachers have some excellent ideas on what has worked and not worked with the remote learning schedule, and will have equally valuable input on a hybrid schedule as well. Regarding technology needed by students and staff, shout out to my colleagues in the science department who had to listen to my trials and tribulations of testing no fewer than 3 digital pen tablets and 5 different software downloads to find the one combo that actually made my chemical formulas and equations look sharp. Not to mention headsets and podcast mics, cameras, and first try YouTube video tutorials that I made them like and subscribe to. Joking aside, I would hate to see the task force have to spend any time, and perhaps more importantly, money, doing research that has already been done by so many of us on the staff. I've heard ideas both in our town and others about Room and Zoom. I think teacher voices have to be heard on the pros and cons and the technology that we need or don't need in order to teach students in person and potentially at home simultaneously. Regarding professional development of our staff, while none of us are experts, we are all certainly much improved and looking forward to getting better and finding ways to be successful in what might be an entirely new adventure of a hybrid model. Teachers are eager to come up with their PD needs, and we could staff that very PD with the experts already in the building and community. Just like our awesome Teacher Tech Round Robin PD Day, and I'm sorry, Peter, I can't remember what that day is called, but it's really good. The other day, my daughter, a Hopkinton Middle School student, asked me, she's like, "Mom, have you tried using Pear Deck with your classes yet?" Ugh. Like, after ignoring her for a few days because I just didn't have the bandwidth for another new thing right then, I went and looked at it and I thought, oh man, this looks pretty awesome. And then I thought, I wish her teacher or one of my colleagues could just teach me the best way to use this in like 15 minutes instead of having to sift through all of these tutorials. PD could be an entirely teacher-centered event, perhaps even done remotely or asynchronously, so as not to compete with what may already be a complex and challenging new schedule in the fall. This maximizes our time with students and additionally prepares teachers with these tools ahead of time. Regarding necessary curriculum, instruction, and assessment adaptations, with a lot of trial and error, I learned which labs I could turn virtual, which ones I could safely make into kits to send home, and which ones weren't feasible at all. I wonder if labs will still need to be done individually in the fall due to social distancing, and how that will impact what we can do, and what shared equipment will now have to be ordered in duplicate. I speak for the entire science department with these lab concerns and ideas, and I can imagine that other equipment-heavy departments like fine arts and wellness have meaningful concerns and good ideas in this regard. I can't think of anyone more qualified than teachers to determine which courses can run successfully in a hybrid model and which cannot. No one more qualified than teachers to determine how curriculum, instruction, and assessment will have to change. Second only to building relationships with students. This is our bread and butter. This is what we studied when you generously supported our quest for graduate degrees. Please use us for this. Get some return on that investment. Regarding extracurricular activities, I found some of my students needing non-academic time with me and, more importantly, each other that replicated the experiences we would have during extracurriculars or just hanging around after school. I know this is partly what the DSB time between classes was for, but students often use that time for extra help or finishing up work, or to take a break and stretch or eat breakfast. While nervous about offering office hours outside of the schedule and mindful to ensure students knew it was purely optional, I decided to go ahead and give something more like after school a try. 2 evenings a week have turned into 10 minutes of chemistry questions and 45 minutes of virtual game night. I wonder how things like this will play a role in the fall, and how we should consider scheduling or grouping students so that they get time together with their friends and full extracurricular groups, even, of course, as I value their making and interacting with new ones. I know that all of my colleagues have had many diverse types of learning moments like these. I fear that waiting for their expertise to chime in later in the process deprives the task force of valuable information up front. I feel lucky that I am not in the position to have to make the tough calls that lie ahead. And instead, I get to celebrate the small and delightful wins. Like when we get a student able to participate in a Zoom session who was too shy to the day before. Or the big wins, like the choral videos that reach into the deepest part of us, reminding us of the goodness, hope, and resilience, that exist in our students, our families, our staff, and our community. I hope that you get a chance to experience the frequent moments of beauty that have happened over the past few months in all of our schools. I thank you sincerely for the opportunity to be a part of it. My heart goes out to all in our community who are struggling. And I apologize to those students and families that our work has not served well enough. We are working and striving to improve every day. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera.
Rivera for president, 2020.
Keith, is there one more person?
We do have one more person. That's 508, and they're unmuted. 508, please identify yourself.
Hi, good evening. Jamie Catone here, president of the Holliston Federation of Teachers. Can you guys hear me okay? It's really odd being on the phone and not being live with real people in return. Great, thank you.
We can hear you, Jamie.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you all for allowing these public comments to be made during your virtual meeting. And second, I'd like to publicly thank the hardworking secretaries, professionals, teachers, and others who've worked so tirelessly over the past 2 months to steer the ship through the storm as we create a remote learning environment to continue educating our students. We deeply miss our students and the personal relationships that are created within our schools. As HFT president, I, along with fellow elected HFT officials and committee members, are the exclusive bargaining agent for nearly 400 teachers, paraprofessionals, and secretaries who serve the Holliston education community. I understand the time available to me is limited, so I will get to the point. The HFT has been and always will be a collaborative partner, working together with school administration and the school committee to provide the best quality education for our students and a healthy working environment for our staff. We aim to be partners, to work productively, proactively, and in concert on all issues that pertain to the Holliston Public Schools. We want to be part of the process and part of the solution. I'm here today to specifically respond to a statement that was made by Dr. Jackson during public session of the May 14 school school committee meeting. I would typically hold these grievances in private. However, word got back to me that members of the Holliston community may have perceived Dr. Jackson's comments as a direct accusation that the HFT has held up planning for the changing school start times next year by filing a cease and desist letter. During the May 14th meeting, Dr. Jackson stated in his school start times update, I am, quote, struggling a little bit with some of the challenges faced by the HFT's cease and desist order that was sent to us in February that bars our access to teachers to participate in the process of collaborating on options, end quote. This is an incomplete portrayal of events. Actions speak louder than words. In my count, there were 6 formal occasions in which the HFT reached out to the proactive part of this process, going back to June of last year and as recent as this past February. I count 0 occasions in which the superintendent invited the HFT into a conversation about the implications of the changes to school start times. In an effort to collaborate, the HFT formally requested to be part of planning meetings held by administrators at each of the 4 schools. During these meetings, it became evident that negotiations were occurring directly between administrators and individual teachers, a practice that is prohibited by collective bargaining law. A cease and desist letter was filed, but that was filed to bring the conversation where it legally should be, between the elected union officials and the elected school committee officials or their designee, to negotiate these changes to the working conditions for our staff. So I'd like to end with a final comment and a question. It is essential that the HFT be allowed to be a collaborative partner, particularly in turbulent times like these. We have been and always will be proactive participants in making our schools the best they can be for our community. We are here. We are at the table. Will you work with us? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Cachone. And that closes out our public comment section of this evening. We are going to move down to our next agenda item. Brad has a friendly face to put up on screen for us. So Brad, I will give it to you.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to invite high school principal Nicole Bottomley and her new assistant principal to unmute themselves and to turn on their video of their Zoom session. And Nicole, if you could take the floor and introduce Karen to the community.
Sure, I am happy to do so. So I am thrilled to get to introduce Karen Archibald to the Holliston community. She is joining Holliston High School as our new assistant principal next year to join our administrative team. That being said, she's already eagerly participating in some conversations about our school district and also plans for next year. So although she doesn't officially start until July 1st, she is well-versed in a lot of scheduling challenges and other pieces of the role that I think are invaluable and that she is excited to engage in conversations about. So just to remind everybody, we started this process in terms of seeking our next assistant principal. We had Ron Sudmeyer in this year as a one-year interim position, and Ron is fantastic, and I have no doubt will remain in a TBL district nearby. He's done a lot of interim positions as both an assistant principal and as an athletic director, and I don't think he's going to go too far, so I'm sure our paths will cross again. But we knew he was in a one-year position, and so we were able to launch a full search a few months ago, pre-remote learning. So the process did start and was posted before we all went into remote learning. But we were able to conduct an interview process pretty soon after we all went online into this world of Zoom. And through that process, we were able to interview a number of candidates. We were able to have a lot of our teachers, our faculty, participate in a Zoom session and through the interview process with Karen. And we were also able to have a number of students participate as well as administrators from the school. And we are thrilled that she is joining our team. So I will let her do a brief introduction of who she is, but I just wanted to announce how excited we are that she's going to be a member of the administrative team at Holliston High School and brings with her a wealth of knowledge and expertise and innovative and creative ideas, no pressure, but lots of great things that she brings forward. And I think will be a wonderful addition, not just to the high school, but to the community of Holliston.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am Karen Archambault, as Nicole indicated. I am currently the assistant principal at Westport Junior Senior High School, which is way down at Horseneck Beach. I live in Franklin, so I'm very excited, one, to just be in Holliston in general. Super great opportunity. I lived in Hopkinton for a long time, so I'm very familiar with the area and the community. I am very passionate about a couple of things. One is teacher-student relationships and faculty and administration relationships, and also around the area of cultural proficiency in particular. I love to teach about that, both adults and kids. I am also logistically, I'm from one of the few schools in the state other than Holliston that actually operates on a block schedule also. So I'm familiar with it. I have going on 10, 15 years of experience with Power School. So with scheduling with Power School. So I have all that logistical end of things. But I also, prior to working in Westport, I was in Wellesley, as I said, for 10 years. And in Wellesley, I was part of their creation of the school within a school, in interdisciplinary learning, and about, we got some initial stuff with Ken Kay, who's the person, was originally called the Profile of the Graduate. So I have experience with all of those things, and I'm really excited to come to a school where it's one-to-one, and just to bring some of my expertise around that. I'm also a certified DataWise coach, which is a program that's an overlay to innovation that you want to create within your district. And basically it's a process to go through that, to commit to taking action using intentional collaboration with faculty and students and administrators, basing everything in evidence. So that's where the data part comes from. I'm a little bit of a data nerd, I have to admit, but I'm excited to bring that expertise too. So I base everything in evidence. So you can't go wrong. There's no arguing with the evidence. So I'm very excited. I cannot wait to start. So as Nicole said, I've been coming to a few things here and there to just get my feet wet so I can make sure that I can jump off on July 1st and start with action right away. So I'm happy.
On behalf of the committee, I welcome you, and we cannot wait until we can actually meet in person and have a little, even if it's social distancing, we're thrilled to have you. Congratulations and welcome. And the committee is welcome to ask a question or two, but I just want to remind them that this is not an interview, so let's just be brief with our questions and comments. Right. If you have one, though, raise your hand, please. And Louise, and then Cynthia.
I just wanted to say welcome, Karen. Sadly, my final child in the district will be graduating soon, so
congratulations.
I won't have an opportunity to meet you through those interactions, but I'm delighted that we were able to find someone so quickly and someone with all of those amazing credentials. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for joining us tonight. I don't know where I am on your screen.
In the middle.
I do have.
I'm afraid I look like I'm asleep, so I'm just looking.
No, you
at
don't look like you're asleep. I was just trying to give you get you oriented. I know there's also so many different squares on your screen. So, welcome. I actually will have a senior next year, so you'll probably get to see or meet her possibly.
Wonderful.
And I'm particularly interested in the whole school within a school that you were discussing. And I'm wondering if you have any pets that have been visiting in your Zooms And that's
So actually, today we had our senior project presentations, which is something specific to our district. And one of the students actually had her guinea pigs on her lap in the middle of her presentation, which was very cute. And I asked her to hold them up so we could see as I'm grading her on the rubric. But hold up your guinea pigs, extra point.
Right. It's like everyone's got their own little pet therapy going on.
Exactly.
Right now. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else? All right. Well, we do not want to take up too much of your time. It's still a beautiful evening. I think it's still light out a little bit. So we really look forward to you starting, and we look forward to seeing you in upcoming meetings.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you. You too, and welcome.
Thank you.
So before we move on to all of our old business, and there's a lot of it, someone gently reminded me that tonight is technically the last night for our student representatives, which, my apologies, I don't know what day it is, so I'm not sure where we are. So first, I want to give you big virtual hugs for being awesome students and for all your efforts and for all your input. We're so proud of you, and we know that your future is totally bright. So thanks for being on our team.
Thank you for having us all year.
And just make sure you stay in touch, okay? All right. Okay, we are going to move on to old business. COVID-19 update. Brad?
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to go over briefly 3 issues tonight just to update the committee and the community. First of all, on Monday morning, late Monday morning, I did send out an update to the entire community. Peter and I did, with an update on where we were and what our plans were, our plans for planning for the fall, to give people an update as to where we were and to the 4 scenarios that we were currently considering, and the work that's being done in that area. So I'll circle back to that, but I just wanted to let you know that, to remind you that that communication did go out. Secondly, I did want to just update the committee that, in case you didn't hear it, that the Holliston High School has announced that it is formally delaying its graduation exercises until Saturday, July 25th. Ms. Bottomley, myself, Emergency Management Director and Fire Chief Mike Cassidy, and Chief of Police Mike Stone made this announcement this morning. And we, but however, we are going to be organizing a senior car parade through parts of Holliston for graduation day. Those details are being worked out by our public safety officials. It is far beyond my scope of expertise to figure out how to get 200 cars of teenagers through Holliston safely. And we'll be relying on our public safety officials to help develop that that plan, and that will be announced to our seniors as additional information becomes available. Finally, I did share with the committee in the packet, and it didn't get in and put in there until late this evening, late this afternoon, not late this evening. The framework that we're using for to begin our planning scenarios of the fall. Basically, we are focusing on, as I said in the letter to the community, we're focusing on 4 scenarios: 100% remote learning, a hybrid scenario where some percentage of students comes to school and another percentage does not, and those students rotate. a full opening with 100% of our students present, but with social distancing and medical safety protocols in place. And the fourth scenario, which is, in my opinion, is our baseline scenario, which is business as usual. We have divided those. Now we're at the point where, if you look at this sheet, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20, 22, 23 different factors against which each of these scenarios will be analyzed. Scheduling, staffing patterns and plans, health and safety protocols, etc. This planning is going to be ongoing throughout from now until August 15th, or actually probably from now until we open our doors. I am so incredibly proud of our high school teachers, 2 science department teachers who spoke to you today, not only as content experts, but also as experts in the online and virtual world that they've been traversing. And I can assure them and all of the staff that their involvement is crucial to the development of these plans in a thoughtful way. We are honestly trying to balance the need that the committee has expressed for some level of initial planning that can inform the budgeting. At the same time, these folks are teaching full time and doing a lot of that work. And so we don't want to overburden people, but we will welcome feedback and assistance all throughout this process, starting as soon as tomorrow. So I'm really thrilled that they offered, and I certainly accept and appreciate that type of support. To assist in the connection of this educational planning with the budget planning that the school committee needs to do, today the administrative team chose to focus our first efforts on trying to develop some thoughts around the hybrid model. The reason we chose to approach this one first is twofold. First of all, it is, of the 4, it probably has the highest likelihood of being the one we might be implementing. And the second is that it probably would, in most cases, be the most expensive to implement. So in order to give the budget subcommittee and the school committee ultimately input into the potential costs of opening under non-standard circumstances that we anticipate in the fall, we're going to focus our original thinking around this hybrid model because, frankly, it's impossible to fully vet out all 4 models and meet the time challenges that the committee is facing in terms of looking at its FY21 budget. The initial challenge that we are going to approach as a team is, first of all, as Chrissy mentioned, we have to figure out what our capacity is. And whether or not we can plan for a 50-50 model. We have to make sure our classrooms can fit approximately 50% of our students. That in and of itself is an important first step, and the principals are doing that tomorrow and this weekend. And then we'll reconvene Tuesday to begin the conversation about how different scenarios through which we might divide students. To us, this is the fulcrum issue, because from that, a lot of the other operational issues work themselves out. such as transportation, food service, those types of things. So our analysis is that that issue needs to be addressed first. Now, this is not to say we are going to, on a student by student basis, say this one goes over here, this one goes over here, this one goes over here, but rather what are the criteria through which we might divide our students into two groups. The complexity of that question is significant and enormous. You have to consider that there may be students whose families don't, or families who don't want their students to return in the fall and may prefer a 100% remote model. There also may be students whose special needs would suggest that they may be in a better position to benefit the most from being in school every day or all the time. So it may not be just, split the whatever class you have down the middle. A through M is in one group, N through Z is in another. So once we have teased that out, and not on a student by student basis or even a class by class basis, but developed a framework, then we can proceed with the remainder of the planning. I will, one of the issues that, and that work will be supported, assisted, and done in partnership with teachers who want to support and assist in that effort. So that's the current status of our planning for the fall. And those are the three things I wanted to report tonight under the COVID-19 update.
Brad, this afternoon I forwarded to you, or maybe it was last night, and I know other school committee members did as well, the CDC recommendations that are floating around social media. And I guess I would say, or I would ask that I think we need to address that maybe somehow, because I think people are panicking, myself included. When I read that, my first reaction was, my kids might not be ever going back to school, but definitely not next year. And I know my reaction is similar to many. So I guess I just want to publicly share with you that those recommendations are floating around out there, and I'm wondering, how does that impact our planning as well?
I have not had a chance to read those documents in their entirety. My original look at them are that they are written in the present tense, not the future tense. So that those guidelines, the way I read them, are for school districts that are currently considering reopening now, as opposed to considering reopening in the fall. Now, I may be misreading them, but that's the way I read them. Again, this is where the guidelines that are going to be forthcoming from the state are the most important. We did receive today, and I'll share that information with the committee. We did receive today what I would consider the first set of explicit guidelines on graduation. And those came out at about 2 o'clock today, sometime this afternoon. And basically, those guidelines said that ceremonies, and I'm trying to stick to the point, I promise. Ceremonies held between now and July 18th must be held virtually or in extremely limited other circumstances following safety protocols, e.g. car parades. Ceremonies held beginning July 19th may take place, only outside under the following standards and assuming public health data supports the continued opening of our state. And then they list out actually some quite explicit requirements that will probably remind you of a walk-through market basket in terms of directional tape on the floor for moving through in specific directions. Obviously 6-foot social distancing, masks, those type of things. To me, that's actually the first clue as to the worst case scenario that we might be opening under in the fall. Which I think does point perhaps to the likelihood of a hybrid model. But I remain hopeful. I'm not confident, but I'm hopeful that we will be returning in the fall with a minimum of some of our students in our schools each day.
Thank you. That was a helpful perspective because I read it as that's the recommendation. That, you know, even if you're wrong, at least it's a good perspective.
Well, I'd encourage other people to read it through that lens and see if they agree with me or not, and maybe they don't. But that's the way I read it.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee about COVID-19? Dawn and then Anne Louise.
Brad, given the guidelines that just came out today regarding graduation, and it sounds like no outside graduation until at least July 19th, so no outside ceremonies, and that's really 200 to 300 people. What impact does that have, or do you have guidelines on summer school? What is going on with summer school, which I thought was scheduled to start even before July 18th?
Summer school, there's two things that we're working on planning for right now, in addition to graduation, in addition to opening in the fall. And that is our extended school year special education program. And hopefully Ms. Kamiri will be able to join us at the next meeting will be able to join us at the June 4th meeting to update the committee on what our current plans are there. And then the Oasis Summer extended day program. The summer extended day program is going to run under restrictions based on summer day camps and not on educational restrictions. So we have to use the summer day camp guidance that's come from the state as opposed to any educational guidance. And that we have a meeting scheduled, Dr. Patello and I, Emergency Management Director Cassidy, Meg Kamiri, and Carol White. We have a meeting scheduled Tuesday to talk about that, to review her plan against the standards that the state has already published about summer camps.
Anne-Louise.
Forgive me. Brad, can you send, I was looking for the link to the graduation requirements. So if you actually have those, I was just trying to Google them, didn't come up with a quick response. Now three things to be discussed since I had the question. So I guess I'll think of it later then. I apologize.
Peter?
Is that me? Did you hear that noise? I had this. As far as ESY, the summer special education program, we're hoping for guidance from the state on that, perhaps as soon as tomorrow. They've told us that it's coming, but they haven't released it yet. So we're basing it upon, working with Lynn Bowler and basing it upon assumptions that are not explicit to that type of programming in that return. But we're hoping to be able to then revamp the planning based upon that guidance. And I know, Meg Camiri and Kelly Camp and Lynn and others are in the midst of that. But hopefully the guidance will come tomorrow through the department.
Annalise.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I just forward you all the DESE guidance on graduation.
Thank you, Brad. I didn't want to interrupt the chain there because you were talking about a lot of different things, not just graduation, but I did want to publicly thank Nicole Bottomley and Chief Cassidy and everyone involved in trying to plan graduation. There was an enormous amount of pressure from the community and, quite frankly, from the parents and myself and Mrs. Freely, who are the class parents, to really take a hard look at what the kids were asking for a delayed graduation. And I appreciate, and I know they appreciate that that she heard them and was willing to work around that. It's not easy. It's not an easy choice. And even in late July, it's interesting that July 18th date is only really a week or two, 10 days before the scheduled date for the delayed graduation. So it's not clear what that will be, and there may still be some significant restrictions. And it's not insignificant that, the Holliston Police and Holliston Fire Department are going to have to work around summer schedules, et cetera. So I just want to thank everybody, and especially Ms. Bottomley, for really working to make that happen. It's not easy. There were some sacrifices made in there, and there are some students who may not be able to attend because of conflicts and health issues, et cetera. And I'm hopeful that we can still accommodate those students in another way, maybe even on the 7th in the parade or what have you. So our goal is that every graduate will have that moment to raise their hand and say, I did it. So thank you.
Any other questions from the committee on the COVID update? Okay, moving right along. Brad, is there any update on school start times?
Not tonight.
Okay. FY21 budget, our discussion and revote. I'm turning it over to the budget subcommittee and Brad, Keith, and Peter. So whoever wants to start.
So the budget subcommittee met again this week, and there were a number of things on our agenda. It included taking another look at the operating budget and determining if we could reassess the request for FY21, which we did. I will take you through that. We also took a second look at the planning framework for reopening, and clearly as a budget subcommittee and a school committee, we have a vested interest in trying to make sure that we are using a lens of sort of financial management to look through that. And I deeply appreciate that the framework that we worked on, that Dr. Jackson took that and has shared it, modified it a bit and shared it with the administrative committee, and that everybody is working on that. I do want to say this. I was so delighted to hear Chrissy Chestnut and Amanda Rivera, two of our amazing teachers up at the high school. And you don't have to say much more. You just hear them and you just want to be in their classroom. I am so impressed with everything that they shared, the specifics in where they believe they could really add to the planning effort, and would strongly encourage the administration to include them as soon as possible in as meaningful a way as possible in that effort. I know it's hard to have a million people at the table, but I think their voice is important because they have really good ideas and they're on the front lines. So we did talk through framework. And then we also discussed the fee refund requests that we've been receiving around kindergarten tuition and pre-K and buses, et cetera. So we got through that. So I'm going to try to go through this relatively quickly with Lisa Koshin and Andy Morton. The only thing I'm trying to check, because there was some mix-up in the documents, and Keith just sent me back. I want to make sure I've got the right one here. So if you'll just bear with me one moment.
Final changes in the thing that says revised again.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I dump out the old one before I download this one. So just give me 2 seconds, everybody. And again, let us hope that this is it. I'll share my screen in just a half second here. Okay.
Look at page 4. That's the one that'll tell you.
That's the one. Okay.
5/20/20.
So this is tricky. If I go to full screen on my end, then I can't share easily. Let's see that. Okay, let me try to do this. Sorry. I'm going to hit share screen and then try to maximize it so it's large enough.
You are now experiencing what every administrative Zoom meeting has been for the past 3 months as we all try to share our screens.
I know. I mean, I do this professionally, but you never know. Like, what I've got is competing software, I think. Hang on. There, now you hear my trash bin. Yeah, I can't put it in. There we go. Wow. Okay. Actually worked. There we go. Alrighty. So the last time we presented to the committee at large a revision to the requested operating budget was on April 2nd. So that was, almost 2 months ago. So we're coming back to you. The context here, I'm not going to go through. That's for public purposes if anyone downloads this off of the district website. But the bottom line is we really felt it was important to take another look at the budget because so much has changed in the economic environment surrounding, clearly the nation, but us locally. And previously, our budget reflected a request of 2.72% in the overall operating budget year over year. And while quite frankly, that was a relative, it wasn't guideline, because I know all my finance committee colleagues will be out there going, well, it was still above guideline. But it was a relatively modest request for a school district when you compare it to the many school districts across the Commonwealth. So at the time, that seemed like a really reasonable, fair request. And we've had to modify it now significantly, and that's unfortunate, but it is the reality. Our goal is to protect the classroom. Every single decision that we make, and I think I can speak for the committee at this point, is to ensure that we protect the classroom, and by that we mean everything that impacts a student's education, from teacher and staff and administrative salaries to program and curriculum costs. We work from that center point outward, and that philosophy in managing the budgets has not changed. I think the thing that will change moving forward, because it has to, are additional considerations around curriculum planning, technology, and safety as it relates to the pandemic. So those will trigger unanticipated costs. And that's why Dr. Jackson and the administrative team and the teachers are all working so hard right now to try to come up with a plan, because we need to know what we're facing so that we're prepared for it, so that we can get the funds appropriated to support the district. and importantly, so that we can purchase supplies, curriculum materials, et cetera, in time to open the year. So I'm going to just kind of move down a little bit further. Basically, I need to minimize all you people here over in the corner. Hold on, sorry, because I can't see my own screen. So we are recommending that we reduce the budget request to run rate plus fixed cost increases, so no change in current services. What that means in just sort of really layman's terms is we want to hold on to what we've got right now. We're not asking for anything extra. We want to hold on to the teachers and the programs and curriculum strategy, everything that's in programs that we have in place today. But just to turn the lights on, there will be a few incremental costs, but we're not asking for anything beyond that. To get there, there are a few additional items that we've had to eliminate from the budget or that we're recommending. The first is the Mood Check Depression Prevention Program cost, not the program itself. We think this program is essential to monitoring the health and well-being of our students, and importantly, being able to reach out to those who may be vulnerable. So the program itself is essential, but we believe that there are sufficient funds remaining from another grant or the original grant that will allow us to pay for this in the coming year, partly through savings because of the shutdowns. So we think we can take that cost out of the budget ask and still proceed with the program. And I know everyone will find that to be good news. The second thing we had...
Anne Louise, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's not a depression prevention program. It's a depression screening program.
Yes, it is, Joan. That's correct. Sorry, that was a quick typing.
There's a lot of people watching on Facebook, and I just wanted to.
Yeah, no. That's a valid correction. This was quick typing, let me tell you, before we pulled this together. So thank you. Moving on to the next. And by the way, I cannot see your faces on my screen right now. So if you have questions, I guess just blurt it out or need to stop me. The permanent sub, we actually went back and forth on this one a little bit because having a permanent sub in place, we believe is actually going to be more important next year. We're not going to be in a position to leverage the cafeteria under the best of circumstances and put, 60 children in there if we need to. We just won't have the social distancing space. And I think the restrictions that are going to be put in place would prevent us from really doing that. And more importantly, the idea of having somebody who understands our protocols, our, everything from, all the safety protocols, et cetera. But in addition, we are going to be supporting this weird hybrid environment in all likelihood, and a sub that's in the district that can sort of walk in knowing what's going on, no matter what class they have to cover, would be really useful. Having said that, our colleagues on the Finance Committee were extremely helpful in the meeting this week because they were sharing the latest and greatest information from the CARES Act. And the way the CARES Act is structured, the funds that will come to Holliston as a town are about 1.3 million. I believe that was the number, not all for the schools, to be clear. But the way they are stipulating what those funds would cover is that it tends not to cover staff, if you will, especially if that staff was hired before the pandemic or sort of at this stage. What it will cover are other out-of-pocket costs that are strictly related to COVID-19. And if we have to hire additional staff in the fall to manage whatever challenges we are facing, some of that money could be used to potentially cover those situations. So a permanent substitute, we believe, would fall under that umbrella, maybe a couple of other things. And if not, the reality is that there should be a greater supply, sad to say because of the rate of unemployment, but there should be a greater supply of personnel to assist. What we were dealing with last year, and frankly over the last couple of years, is that the economy was so good, we simply didn't have very many people available to work as substitutes in the district. So that would save us another $22,500 as a line item cost, and there'd also be some savings to the town in terms of some benefit costs as well. But if we end up hiring individual subs, then there's some additional costs that way. Probably a wash. And then the last piece, we did review the capital budget on May 13th, and I just wanted to remind everyone that we voted to defer the committee and field project to the fall town meeting and reevaluate it then based on, what the economy looks like, what our own finances look like as a community, et cetera. So, oh, come on, let's see. Oh gosh, is this going to do this? So I'm just going to scoot through that. So this is what the budget looks like. The FY20 approved appropriation, the funds for this year were $34,947,263. When you add the basic but fixed cost increases that sort of occur naturally, but I say naturally, they're largely contractual, but have nothing to do with additional staff or costs or anything like that. It's another $192,452, or an incremental 0.55%. So a small budge up over from where we are today. That brings us to $35,139,715. So the increase, because that's the only item, is that $192,000. And therefore the recommended percent increase is 0.55% net. And the spring capital has now been reduced. That actually was, I think, voted on. So we've got a $518,086 request for capital. I'm going to go through that a little bit later. I think that bears right here. It just bears mentioning that the technology request here is really what's under review right now by the administration. I've spoken with Dan McLeod, and he already told me that he's going to adjust the request for device upgrades. The dollar amount may not change much. We have to see, but he, because of the remote learning environment, he had originally asked for a number of microstations for teachers to have in their rooms. But that's not a practical solution now that our teachers are working in a remote environment. So he's going to switch that request to one for laptops that allow them to manage the classroom effectively. They need hard drives. It can't be a Chromebook. But he believes he's found a device and vendor that is comparable in cost that will suit that need. And then there's going to be some other additions to this. So I didn't even bother to try to update that. We need to really wait on an update from Dan McLeod to give us, who's our technology and learning, and I forget his title so long, a learning integration specialist. He should be able to get that to us, I think, over the next several weeks. So we just got to give him time to refine this a bit. So with that, and of course, if anyone has any questions, the subcommittee would be asking the committee at large to vote on this adjustment to the budget. But I should ask first if you have any questions. I think I can see your faces now. I can see 6 of them. Oh, okay, Dawn, I think I see your hand coming up. Sorry.
And Louise, it's more a question for Keith. I just wanted him to update the community on why we are asking for the Miller roof repair, just the age and the condition, and why that was a recommendation.
Yes, the Miller roof repair, we have our roof regularly inspected both by our maintenance staff and when we have questions about it by our contractor who does some of our larger patches and things of that nature. And the Miller roof, the underlayment underneath the shingles in the pitched section over the cafetorium, the underlayment has gotten soft. So at some point it is going to leak fairly liberally, would be my guess, when it starts. And so it's, again, just to try to protect the asset that is there. And the hand quote that we had gotten is lower than that number, but it wasn't involving prevailing wage, which is an unfortunate byproduct of doing business in Massachusetts or being a municipality, where for construction projects you have to pay prevailing wage, and it ends up being based on a union rate for the Boston area. So I mean, going forward with this, it would be a big formal bid that we'd have to do. And again, it's something that, again, the age is absolutely correct. I mean, that roof was put in service in 1998, for example. So,
any other questions? I'm trying to look at everybody's hand. Oh, I see Cynthia. Sorry, Cynthia. Okay.
Do you happen to know what the network infrastructure is for technology? If you don't, it's fine. I don't remember what that was now.
Brad? Brad's finger.
It's upgrades to some of our servers that are that pose some that can't be upgraded to current levels of software.
And they create bandwidth challenges too, which if we contemplate what September 1st is going to look like, whether it's 50% or what have you, with some students in school and some students Zooming in, we are going to need more bandwidth than we've ever needed before.
Right. But we just did upgrades for our bandwidth, right? Across the district, which is a good thing.
I think this was sort of, Dan isn't here. He could articulate a little bit better. Honestly, it hasn't been a big part of the conversation because it's a much smaller number relative to the others. But I do remember when he first presented it, we were all like, oh yeah, we need that.
We do host a couple of applications here. One of which is the NutriKids application for our lunch program. And the other one is VersaTrans, which is our transportation routing software. At this point in time, while we may be able to go into the cloud for those, it's costs are a little prohibitive going forward. So we're in between, in all honesty, on whether we're going to go that route. So
I think if we, another 2 to 3 weeks, this number will be much tighter for technology, hopefully. And I can't promise that would be the end of it either. Like, there's a very definite scenario here where there could be incremental costs coming up as late as June, so that because we're working through the details of it all.
When is the FinCom hoping that we'll have like a firm number for them? I mean, I know you're updating them every single week. None of this is going to be a surprise for them.
We may do this in tranches, if you will. I mean, we've talked to them. First of all, they've been enormously supportive, and they understand that we've got two challenges. One is to get ahead of the curve in trying to make sure we're purchasing the things that we absolutely know that we're going to need, so that we aren't caught flat-footed in September, because the lead time is essential. It's not just essential competitively because we're up against the other district in the world, but that we got to get this stuff in so that the teachers and administrators can set it up and disperse it, if you will. So what we're trying to do is work through what's the mechanism for that right now, because town meeting has been pushed off until July 25th. And we've also, as you know, gone before the select board to share some of our...
That's not the precise date. July.
Oh, forgive me.
23rd.
Yeah, I'm getting graduation and town meeting all mixed up.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's good.
Put misinformation out there.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I mixed up the two dates. So we can't wait that long. So there's got to be another mechanism to fund some of this stuff. So there are a couple of different ways to do it. They may be able to reach into reserve. We have funds potentially that could be leveraged timing wise for this that would ideally be used for other things, but maybe we pull from, for instance, school choice right now and then replenish that account. So it's like an accounting exercise more than anything right now to figure out how to pay for some things up front. How we fund it overall is where I think the Finance Committee and the Select Board have both been very supportive in trying to figure out how to make sure the schools are prepared and ready to open with whatever we need within reason, But the short answer is we're hoping we can get a number in a matter of a week or two for some of this stuff right here. And then there's probably going to be another number after that. So it might be
I was just wondering when we need to vote on it, I guess.
Kim, we actually talked about, do we need to vote tonight? And then I spoke with Keith and Dan, and then Keith spoke with Dan. I'm actually hoping we might be able to do it next week on the technology capital piece, at least what we know. And as I said, there could be another number later, but that might be a starting point.
Okay.
But tonight we're going to revote the operating.
Yeah.
Yes. The capital is small, way smaller.
Well, it's important though, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see on my little mini postage stamp faces here. Does anyone else have questions about the operating budget, I guess, or the capital? Nope. Okay. Fun topic of the night. All right. So I guess with that, Stace, you can ask for the motion then.
Yeah, can you not share your screen anymore so I can see people, because I can't.
I can.
Anybody?
I can.
Thank you.
Do you want?
Okay. I got the number. I wrote it down.
You did.
So
okay.
is there a motion to? Oh, Andy, are you raising your hand at me? Are you stuck? Okay. Did anyone have a question before I asked for my motion? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the FY21 figured out budget of $35,139,000. Sorry, $35,139,175. No, I have the. Keith, why are you shaking your head at me?
$715.
$715. Yeah.
Oh, because I'm dyslexic, maybe.
$35,139,715.
Okay, is there a motion?
Moved by Andy.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Andy, seconded by Cynthia. All in favor? Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. Okay, 35,139,715. Sorry for the error. Okay. And then we'll talk about capital next week when we have other updated information. All right. Thank you, Budget Subcommittee. We know how many hours you're working, and it is much appreciated. Okay, user fee refund.
Right. God, I just don't even, I hate this topic. It's so hard and so complicated. And the subcommittee did spend probably the bulk of our conversation last week and this week trying to figure out if there was a way to do something here. I think the hardest thing that this committee at large is facing is that nothing financially looks the way it was supposed to look, and there are still so many unknowns about next year, and we are deeply, deeply concerned about that. I talked earlier about the lens of the classroom and protecting that classroom as the sort of the thing we look through, the litmus test for every decision that we make. And that really is true. So I hope that as we go through this, the public can appreciate that where we're coming from is that we have all of your kids' interests at heart. And that means making sure we're not just thinking about where we are in the moment, but we're thinking about next year. So many parents have emailed us, and please know that you have been heard. I haven't been able to respond to every email. I'm sure that the other committee members are doing their best as well. But your concerns are real, and we hear them out loud. A number of parents have shared, how other districts have refunded fees and tuition fees. And let's be honest, there aren't that many districts anymore that charge tuition for kindergarten, and pre-K is a little bit different. But, we've been trying for years to find a way that was affordable for the town to absorb what is almost $700,000 in cost associated with running a full-day kindergarten program. And it's such a big nut that it's always been one that every year we look at it and we try to find a way. And then there are these other screaming priorities, and it's always a balancing act. But that's sort of the backdrop to this. We understand that many families are facing a hardship right now, and that whatever can be returned in the way of fees is what would help. So we sat down and we looked at this carefully. So here's the bottom line. The program itself it's almost like running a private school inside a public school district, because what the schools subsidize through property taxes is what the state mandates. And that's a half a day of kindergarten. That's it. Unbelievably, the state only mandates a half day. So the swing toward a desire for full day kindergarten was so extensive that years ago, I can't remember how many years ago, there was a shift where we finally even brought French immersion up to full day. So that's, I'm going to say something like 95%, maybe 98% of our kindergartners are enrolled in full day kindergarten. And the ones who aren't, it's a philosophical choice for their families as to what they decided was best for their children. So that program it's self-funded. The tuition that is paid pays the salaries of the teachers. And in fact, there are other costs that the district subsidizes, so it's not even fully funded. And what was interesting, when we look at the cost of that, families are paying just over $19 a day for kindergarten. Sorry, that's my kids. Yes, I too have Zoom interruptions. So just over $19 a day for a pretty robust program. And that's a program that I'm not sure you could buy for $19 a day anywhere else. So we've done our best to manage those fees within reason. And so now we're on the flip side, because contractually we've paid for all of our teachers. And that's the real problem that we've been faced with in looking at this over the last several weeks, that, all of the costs have been absorbed by the district, and there really isn't money to refund. Having said that, we recognize, again, that people are struggling in this economy, and so what can we do? So this is the proposal that the subcommittee came up with. Basically, and I do want to say, I have to give credit where credit is due. Thank you. That one of our finance committee member colleagues offered up an idea that we creative and innovative and helpful. Our goal was to acknowledge the hardship factor, especially that there are families in town that are struggling. And so what we think we can afford to do is set up a hardship fund of $50,000. And anyone in the community who has paid for a full day kindergarten, paid the full day kindergarten tuition, is eligible for a refund. And it will be as simple as indicating that you would like to be eligible for a piece of that refund, a piece of the pool or pie. And how that'll work, we'll probably send out an email, and it'll be as simple as check a box. You want, you'd like to apply for the refund or not. If you believe your family needs that refund relative to the hardship, then we will consider it. And there will be a final application date. I'm not sure what that is. We really have to look to the administration to set that date. So maybe it'll be 2 weeks from now. I don't know. Let's say it's June 1st for just like academic reasons here. By that date, if we have 192 applicants for it, then we will divide the $50,000 over those applicants. And if some families determine that they would rather, not apply for it, then other families will be able to benefit from that sacrifice, if you will. I don't know how else to suggest it. And so the remaining families will have that pool divided up among them up to a cap, which is, let me make sure I get the number right, it was $1,197. And that cap is equivalent to the 62 days that we've been shut down, the 62 days of tuition that would have covered that time period. So you can't get back more than what the shutdown's worth, but we are willing to refund all, I think, is it 192 families, Keith? I'm getting a yes from one and from Brad and a no from Keith. It's close to that.
159.
159. Okay. So, if all 159 families, and I shouldn't say families because I suppose there could be twins and triplets in there, but if your student was, if you had more than one child enrolled in kindergarten, then absolutely, and you feel that you need or entitled to that money, then you should definitely apply for it. And it would probably cap for a family like that at the family cap, right? So I don't know what that number is, but so that is the concept. And then that brings us to pre-K. Pre-K is a different situation. It's one that we struggled with kind of in a different way because the cost structure is a bit different for us. It's a completely self-funded program. Pre-K is not mandated by the state at all. Probably should be, but it isn't. And Holliston has for many years run a pre-kindergarten program because we thought it was the right thing to do educationally to get our students sort of off to the right start. It's part of the whole early childhood support system, if you will. Having said that, it is really a private program run within the system. It is 100% tuition based. And so that one continues to deliver the services exactly as they were being delivered, or I shouldn't say exactly, that came out all wrong, but it was a half-day program for pre-K, and it's still a half-day program running the way it's running right now. So in that case, because those services are sort of like services as we move along, if I'm not explaining this well, please someone just jump right in. That one we have decided not to refund the tuition on. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions on this, so I kind of want to tile you out on my screen, and please feel free to ask. And Lisa and Andy, do you have anything else to add to this first off? Let me just ask that. Andy or Lisa, please wait. Lisa, Andy?
Sure. No, I think that you iterated that as well as you possibly could have. It was a difficult decision. We do recognize there certainly is a significant hardship for many families in the community, but also having to balance that against what we as a school have for our own set of circumstances. So I think given the difficult nature of the conversation, this was something that we all, I think, really reluctantly came to as really the best solution that we could come up with. So that's all.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is I wanted to just kind of explain why we changed course, because I know I was pretty adamant last week that, we shouldn't do this because of the risk in future cuts. And for me, I feel like this is a small enough amount of money that it's a fairly minimal risk. And what I mean by that is we have to keep some kind of cushion in the kindergarten revolving account. It's just like your bank account. You don't let it get down to zero, or hopefully you don't let it get down to zero. You have to have a little bit of cushion there. So although this isn't money that we just have sitting around that we can use, the money has been spent. We are paying our teachers. We are not laying off teachers. We are not furloughing teachers. We are able to set this small portion aside without a huge risk that it will affect layoffs or major cuts in the next 6 months or year or 2 years. That being said, it is still a risk. Every penny we spend right now is a risk. We are definitely, we don't know what the future is going to bring. Other towns have had to lay off people and furlough people. And, it's really scary. So if we approve this, I want to be very clear with the public that this is still a risk. It's a much lower risk than what we were talking about with the full refund. And I would really urge people listening that anyone who has not already been financially affected by the downturn, I know people who have and people who haven't, but if you haven't been financially affected by the pandemic, if we do approve this, I would just urge people to definitely take it if you feel like, you've had a financial hardship personally, but, please think twice about it if you haven't. That's all I wanted to add.
Lisa, and then I'll grab, I think Joan had her hand up. I can't remember. Cynthia too. Okay. I just wanted to point out one thing when you mentioned other districts. That has been pointed out to us, and one in particular, Natick, I think, returned some funds. And I just want everyone to know Natick did that. And because, I don't know if it's a cause and effect exactly, but there's only one pot of money. They have furloughed 93 educators and staff members. That is such a big number. They're a much bigger district. But I want to make sure everyone understands the ramification of that. If we were to go whole hog and sort of refund this tuition, it would have to come from somewhere in our budget, somewhere that isn't set up for has nothing to do with kindergarten per se. And the reality is that the way those furloughs work, or RIFs, which is when you lay teachers off, it's not like it's the kindergarten teachers necessarily, right? It's seniority. And so it could be a second grade teacher or a third grade teacher. And that directly impacts the entire system, because then you're going to have to move kids around and increase class sizes, and everything changes, right? And never mind the livelihood of our teachers that we value. You just heard a few of them talk about how passionate they are. And I want everyone else to know one other thing on this. I have been stunned at what Holliston is able to deliver through the remote learning model in comparison to other districts. My next door neighbor works in Wellesley. My other next door neighbor works in Framingham. My cousin works in Medway. And we have friends in some of the other bordering communities, not even close to what Holliston is delivering. So it may not be perfect, but they are doing yeoman's work in making sure these kids are receiving an education. So anyway, sorry, that was my speech. So Joan and then Cynthia.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry I had to move to my phone. My computer just died. Very strange. So I'm sorry for the change. But anyway, when you were, the budget subcommittee were working through the numbers and in this contemplation, did you take into consideration any projections or assumptions about the revolving account and next year? Because there are a lot of questions about, well, the tuition's due for next year, but what's that going to look like? Like, why would you pay for full day if it's going to be remote, or why would you insist on being in French immersion, or, so I'm just wondering, what next year is going to look like is a big question mark for everybody. But when you were contemplating these return of funds, were projections or assumptions for next year, did that come into play?
The revolving account, like if you're not an accountant, this probably doesn't really make a lot of sense to you if you're not really into finances, not you, Joan, but the public here. The revolving account is an accounting mechanism that lets a school district carry money over from one year to the next, but sometimes that can be, there are certain different types of revolving accounts. I'm not going to go into it at all. In the case of tuition, it's in large part because we can start collecting tuition now for next year, if you will. So maybe, Keith, you can talk at a high level about how we leverage the revolving account to manage the tuition for our tuition-based programs.
I mean, everything works within the revolving account. You have to do this to collect money and pay from it. That's a common municipal practice here in Massachusetts. And the tuition program is one of by statute, we're allowed to have it. What we do is basically collect funds, collect funds from tuition and then place it in the account. Now, we've actually started collecting our tuitions earlier and earlier each year because it's actually helped in our collection rates. Our collection rates are nearly 100% because the way we do it, we collect one payment sometime during this fiscal year, our next payment, our second payment, just before the start of the school year. So we're 2 payments in before the year's even started. So it's traditional for us to have a balance for obvious reasons because, again, we haven't incurred any cost while we've collected revenues. So that's one piece of our planning mechanism that we do to ensure that we both collect the maximum amount, on a percentage basis, which makes us allows us to keep our tuition rates as low as possible. We also need to maintain a balance because, again, in the unforeseen situation, because we don't necessarily know how many children are coming to us each year. We use the census, we use birth rates for our projections, but we really don't know until people register because, again, kindergarten is not mandated. You don't have to attend. And we don't know of those people who do attend, how many are going to choose full day versus half day. So we do maintain a balance there because we certainly don't want to come down to doing our kindergarten registration in the spring, making our phone calls, doing our school choice, and end up in September. And also we realize we're a little bit upside down in our revenue and expense program. So again, we can't take the balance down to zero. Otherwise, we're going to be at risk every single September of having to redo classrooms and possibly change our teaching staff or the FTEs within our teaching staff at kindergarten. So again, that's the long, quick version. Did that kind of answer what you wanted to know, Ann Louise? Joan, somebody? No. Joan shaking.
No.
Sorry.
Yes and no. I guess.
Well, the short answer is yes, we talked about that. We don't know.
I don't know what you're asking. You
talked about that. You don't know. So I'm guessing that, I guess there's 2 questions here then. Is the $50,000 that is being contemplated as a pool for refunds, is that revolving account money? That's the first question. The second question is, when you were looking at this refund model and the amount that would be allocated for refund, were you relying upon projections of tuitions for next year?
We have, okay, all right.
No, we aren't. It's again, not knowing both how we're going to be opened and what the distribution is of full day to half day. we make our assumptions, we make our plans, but again, things can change on a dime, especially in this type of environment. So we are confident that we will be okay next year. I'm confident in that this 50,000 of putting this 50,000 aside in this fund, we will not have to change our blend next year based on what happened. So I'm confident in that.
We did look at projections based on current registrations. So the answer to that is yes. And it is coming from the revolving account, but we didn't feel we could go beyond 50,000.
And just to sort of add on to this discussion a little bit, I did ask Brad earlier this week to just give a little more insight as to the tuition bills did in fact go out for the fall, and I wanted him to just give a little more discussion about that, because the initial reaction from people is, well, what the heck, you don't even know what's going to happen. So I want Brad to jump in for a second.
Thank you. I think Keith answered this question primarily in his discussion, but we traditionally always bill the first bill, send the first payment out. First of all, we have over the years, as a courtesy, provided people with a payment plan of 4 payments a year, so that they don't have that big cost at one time. That in the past, what we did is we used to request the first payment at the beginning of the year, and our expenses were running ahead of our revenue. And then when we had collection problems, we were having difficulty matching our collections and our revenues with our expenses. So probably 10 years ago now, Keith and I moved this process back to when we asked for the first 25% of the tuition payment in the May-June timeframe. So as a result, and that's why the bills went out. We need people to secure their full day seats so that we can establish our staffing model for kindergarten for next year. If we have so many full day, so many half day, then our staffing model looks differently. So that does help us inform our staffing model. So that's the second reason why we have always asked for the first payment in this time frame.
And that totally makes sense. My understanding, and this is fifth-hand knowledge, my understanding, though, is it may not have been clear in the letter with the request for tuition. What is the refund policy then? Or what happens if school looks like a hybrid, or school looks like 100% remote learning? So I guess I would ask that communication get to the incoming kindergarten parents, because there's a lot of social.
That doesn't mean we're going to do this every year. We're not committing. We're talking about what we're doing for this year. We're not committing to a plan for every year.
I understand that, Lisa. But if you're asking me to give you my first tuition payment for September, and school doesn't reopen the way it does, where's my money? Aren't I entitled to it? I'm just saying that there's that big question out there, and we've got to address it.
Yeah, but I think
and the other part of that, Stacy, is just to add, because Lisa, you have a response. I just want to, because I'm going to throw this in there in a minute anyway, is that a refund policy, conversely, if you don't pay your tuition, there should be an expectation that you're not going to later be able to sign up for kindergarten full day until we know what that is going to be. So I think that is an expectation that as a district, we have to say one or the other. You know, you can sign up and then you may be entitled to some refund, or if you do not put your deposit in now, that you are not guaranteed a full day spot in the fall. Like, we have to figure out how, and I don't think the budget subcommittee dove into all that. Maybe you did.
We did.
Not really.
Just said no. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
We did actually talk through some of that.
No, but we talked through it in a hypothetical way, not in terms of making a recommendation or making a decision. That's a policy decision. If we're going to start talking about what we're going to do on refunds forever, that's a policy issue.
Correct, but we did explore it.
We expressed concerns that we're setting up a bad precedent. That's what we talked about.
Yeah, but I do want to also clarify this hardship pool. It's not like a refund per se. It's really designed to acknowledge that some families are struggling right now, and we want to do what we can, and we understand that tuition is exacerbating that. So I don't. It's almost hard to call it a straight up refund, you know.
Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you guys for working on this. I know Annalise, you and I have gone back and forth about a bunch of things. Thank you for answering all of my questions, and the memo from Brad as well. Thank you. I was wondering if we vote for this, can you just go into a little bit of detail about the process? Like, how would that work for people to be, what's their eligibility, et cetera, if there is an eligibility criteria, and then how would they go about getting their refund?
Brad,
or, I'm sorry, their hardship mitigation, whatever you're calling it.
We need a better name, I guess, but we can talk to it.
Something short.
The discussion that took place at the budget subcommittee was that the budget subcommittee wanted to draft a letter to send to families from who had from whom we had collected a fee, and we would give them a quick Google form to fill out, included in that letter, which would be their name and a checkbox to say, I wish to apply for a hardship rebate or return of my tuition. The plan would be that there would be no questions asked. There would not be any criteria that people would have to meet. There would not be any paperwork that people would have to fill out. It would be essentially on the honor system. And if people indicated they felt a financial hardship to the point where they wanted to seek a return on part of their tuition, then they would become eligible for access to the pool. And then we would give, as Anne-Louise said, we would give a date by which all applications would be received. And then we would total up the total number of people who had indicated they wanted a refund. If there were less than 41 or less, they would receive a full refund. If they were 42 or more, then they would receive a partial refund. Basically, so if there were 50 people applied, and there's a $50,000 pool, they would receive $1,000 instead of $11,497.
I think we got to be careful not to say full refund. I know we've already specified the amount that's the maximum amount, but I just want to be careful that people tuning in late at home don't get the idea they're going to get the whole year's worth. It's up to, is it 1,100 and something? It's up to a certain amount.
Is that the 1/6 that we were talking about? Is that roughly? I mean, it doesn't matter.
No,
it's just
no. It does.
Okay.
It's less than the 1/6 unless only 41 people apply.
Okay, but if that's 1/3 of the tuition, $1,200 is like what? 1/3 of the tuition?
Yeah, and that's the cap.
That's the cap. Okay, right.
To get to that amount, fewer people
would have to apply. Got it. Right. Okay.
But if all 192 2 or 5 or whatever due, then that's
59.
That's
Okay.
I got that number in my head too. It's
59. Okay. So
I think the
so
number
just for just for clarification, our intent is for the school committee to write a letter to all of these people. Is that correct? That we're going to send to them, asking them if they would like to apply. Is that how that's
I
going to
think
work?
the letter would accompany like literally a checkbox. I don't know if it's a physical letter or frankly, if
It could be an email. I don't,
It'll be an
whatever.
email.
Power School,
Okay.
check here.
A Google form. Okay.
On it, check here if you're willing to forego the rebate opportunity or the hardship rebate.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to pose the question I had earlier to the administration, and that is, has the administration had any conversations about tuition and the fall in terms of contingency planning?
So I wanted to, thanks for that question, Joan, because I wanted to circle back to that issue. So we have had an informal refund policy on tuition for normal school years, and occasionally a family changes their mind based on either financial circumstances or some other set of circumstances and decide, before I start the program, I've decided I don't want to put my child in full day kindergarten. Perhaps, I mean, there's a handful of reasons, but it is traditionally 1 or 2 people a year. And so as a courtesy, we have processed a full refund because it's only a single, some years it's none, some years it's 1 or 2. In the situation that you describe in terms of the fall, I would look to the school committee, much like you are debating this issue, to determine the big P policy regarding those returns, because they could have implications on our staffing levels and other financial implications, much like this conversation has had. So the answer to your question is no. We have not had those conversations at a level of specificity at the administrative level, and I would look for guidance from the school committee on that issue.
So from a procedural standpoint, there's some chatter about, don't pay your tuition bill, don't pay your tuition bill. And I'm assuming we are operating on the assumption or the process that if you don't pay your tuition bill, your child's not guaranteed a full day spot in the fall.
That is absolutely 100% correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it goes beyond that. It not only means you're not guaranteed that spot. I think people have to understand that the ramifications will almost undoubtedly end up in us needing to reevaluate our teaching staff. I don't know how to be more blunt.
Or make those full day seats available through school choice.
True. In which case you could lose out on, the seat that you want, if you will.
Right. And I assure you there is, I understand, I do understand people's concerns about this, but I am confident that, we are overrun typically with school choice kindergarten requests, and most, if not all of them, go unfilled. You've already authorized, how many seats have they authorized already, Keith? 5?
5 in full day traditional and either 2 or 3 in French immersion.
So, so there already is a demand for those seats, and and I understand that it's a supply and demand issue, but we will staff. And eventually, we'll have to make decisions around staffing based on the numbers we have. And then once we make those decisions, then the seats will be unavailable.
I think we need to communicate that, though, to the incoming class. And, you know, I do. I respectfully ask that we either that we send an email to that incoming class and just set the expectations, because just too much gets out there with social media, and then there's all sorts of misinformation out there. And you know, I get it. We're in this ridiculous time we've never anticipated. So I do ask that we do something in terms of communicating about tuition. I just think that would be helpful in this situation.
Certainly, and I'm happy to do that. And you know, you know, at the risk of poking a bear here, I think it's, you know, I think this is a good example of, you know, I don't know if Keith has received any emails about this. I have not received an email about this. So this is essentially a social media conversation and social media is not the most effective place to get questions answered. And so, you know, I encourage people to reach out, to send emails to me, send emails to the business manager. All our names are all on the letterhead of the letter that you got sent. We're happy to answer them, but you know, and I had learned secondhand, Stacy, through you, that this conversation was taking place on social media, but I've also been encouraged many, many, many times by members of this committee to not jump in the middle of a social media brouhaha. So you know, I think it's just a good reminder for all of us that social media is not the most effective way to give or receive information.
Absolutely, and I still stick with that. Stay off of social media. Keith?
We have had 3 people this year who have asked about what our refund policy is for next year, either pre-K or K. So it's 3 is the number.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. So, all right, Anne-Louise,
we need to put on the agenda for a future meeting.
Put what up?
To talk
creation
about
of
our
a
policy.
Do we have
a policy subcommittee?
I could look at it from the policy subcommittee if you want.
Could you?
Sure.
Great.
Boy, do you sound excited.
Okay.
Well, it's 9:20, so.
So, Anne-Louise, before
2 hours left.
My question is, do you want us to do a vote on each fee separately? And if that's the case, do you want to take a break from talking about stuff and let's move to a vote on the $50,000, whatever we want to call that group of money?
Well, I think, okay, the $50,000 refund pool. Oh, Daniel.
Hardship fund.
What? Hardship fund. Thank you.
Pandemic hardship fund or something.
Pandemic hardship fund, or just hardship fund in case it survives, God forbid, to some future. But that, I think that's part and parcel with the policy, if you will, around how it will be used. So maybe there's a policy attached to that, but I do think we have to be clear around the terms of that if we're going to vote that. Does that make sense? So I think that's one thing. And then if you want to, that's it, because didn't we vote last week on the bus fees? We did not. We held off on that. Thank you. It's just a blur because that means so much.
I thought we voted.
All right. So you know what? All right. Give a brief explanation on the bus fees and we'll vote that first. Okay.
The bus fees, we recommended refunding a prorated portion of the savings based on the fee paid. So we had savings. Now, I'm sorry, I'm caught off guard on this one because I don't have my notes in front of me on the exact savings we had with the bus fees. So
Oh, the
without
total, the total rebate return would be $20.46 per bus pass.
Thank you. So that is what we recommended returning based on the prorated portion of the savings. And that's it. There was nothing else.
And Brad, what's the process on how bus fees would be returned? And can we, yep, and I'll get your question in 1 second. What's the process for how those bus fees would be returned, and to who would they be returned to? To whom?
Keith, we haven't really talked about that. We can contact, we can contact families and ask if they want the money credited towards next year, or we can do a return. What's easiest for the town, Keith?
Since there's 970 returns, it's easier just to process them rather than trying to reach out to the 970 people. So the process would be is we return the money to the source. So if Ann Louise wrote us the check for the bus fee, we return it to Ann Louise, not to Ryland. So
go Ann Louise, yay.
Don't spend it all in one place.
I know, right? I was going to ask if people can opt to, if they contact you and say they want it to roll over into, no, that's no bueno.
It's just too complicated. With 900 people, we just don't have the staff to do that.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Are you voting on both of them together, Stacy, or are you voting?
No, separate. So is
no, we got to vote separately. There's pre-K, there's K, and there's the bus fees.
Right. So I'm starting with the bus fee. Is there a motion to approve a refund of $20.46 per bus pass to the, how many recipients? 970 recipients? Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved. Yes.
Seconded by Andy.
Moved by Ann Louise, seconded by Andy. All in favor. Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi? Yes. And now I'm going to ask the next question that's on everybody's mind. When will those refunds be coming? Roughly time frame. I don't need the exact date.
4 to 6 weeks. How's that?
We try to do within the month. I mean, processing 970 new invoices with, these are one-time vendors. So we have to create an address. It's a process. So you'll see it on a warrant.
Okay. The recommendation for preschool tuition, is there a motion? How am I going to say this? I don't want it to be negative. Hold on. Give me a minute to. And they were not wordsmith. Lisa, where's my wordsmith? What's the right motion without making it a double negative? Oh, I know. So what about this?
Retain the tuition paid.
Is there a motion for the district to retain all tuition paid for preschool? Cynthia, why are you making faces at me?
Yeah.
Well, the other option is we can vote it down, and I can say, is there a motion to refund a portion of preschool tuition?
Yeah, that's better.
But no one's going to move that.
Well, yeah.
Well, you can move it. You just vote no.
Yeah.
Can you move it and vote no?
Yes. Yes, you can. Yeah.
Because it's like moving the question, right?
When you make
I'll move it.
Okay.
I'll second it. Sure.
Moved by Anne Louise, seconded by Lisa. All in favor, Ms. Hanstead?
No.
Mrs. Listevnik?
No.
Ms. Koshin?
No.
Mr. Morton,
No.
Ms. Shaughnessy.
I'm confused. I have to abstain. I don't even understand what we're doing. I don't get it.
Okay, move on.
The motion is
I don't think it's that hard. Explain it.
It isn't. It isn't.
The motion is to approve giving a partial refund.
No, you're all frozen on my screen right now. So, and you kept going in and out. I'm having problems with my computer because I live in Brentwood and my internet connection is terrible.
All right, can you hear me now?
All frozen.
Ms. Naborski?
No.
Mrs. Raffi? No. Joan, can you hear us?
She's frozen.
All right.
Okay.
Frozen.
Now, before we I have a question. Before we vote on the kindergarten tuition, did anyone check with council if it's legal to have a hardship fund?
Wait, Stace, you're kind of underwater.
She asked if anyone checked with town council to find out if it's legal to have a hardship fund.
It's not a hardship fund. It's a methodology for offering a partial return on a fee paid. So you're voting on the methodology, not establishing a fund. And the methodology is to fund up to $50,000 out of the kindergarten revolving account to provide full-day kindergarten fee payers the opportunity to apply for a hardship refund of up to $1,197 to be distributed as described in the memo from the superintendent dated May 21st, 2020.
I wonder though, I think that is a good point though. I wonder if we need to check the language with Andy before we send it out. I mean, we don't want to open ourselves up to future issues, right?
Can I make a suggestion? I think we vote the concept of this, and then if we find out we need to tweak the language without materially impacting, sort of what we're trying to do here, because that'll just add more time. And then certainly if Andy comes back with council that says, no, do it this way or can't do it, then we'll have to revote the whole thing.
Okay. So is there a motion, and Lisa, when you take notes, Lisa Aronian, Brad will give you the motion that he just read so eloquently.
And then you can add to the end of it, subject to the review of council.
Moved by Dawn, subject to the review of council.
Seconded by Anne Louise.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Anne Louise. All in favor, Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi? Yes. Thank you for that compromise to the budget subcommittee. I really appreciate you taking this back to the table last week, and that, I feel a little bit better about this, and we are in a time, I hate that word, but we are in an unprecedented time, and I am concerned about, this is about our HPS families, so I really appreciate that. Joan?
I just wanted to apologize. I had to abstain because I couldn't, my screen keeps freezing and I couldn't tell what was going on. But for the record, I completely appreciate and endorse the budget subcommittee's stance on all of this. And it wasn't my intention to abstain because I have some philosophical difference. It's that you all are freezing a lot more than you're moving on my screen.
And
maybe Jack needs to get off the Xbox or something.
He's not here. He's not here.
Oh, all right. Can't blame the bandwidth. Who's playing, what in the other room?
All right, so let's move on to the policy on capital. And I do want you to know that I did forward Anne Louise's recommendations for edits to Andy Waugh last week. So budget subcommittee, anyone?
Andy, I went back to Andy and asked him for clarification. He came back and said he agreed with my comments and position on this policy that I had written in, and I had kind of sent him the big long email. And then I sent him back another one, said, okay, super, is the language okay? And that we proposed, or would he have other alternate language? And then he wrote me another really nice comprehensive response. And I have to be completely honest, like that came through over the last 24, 48 hours, and I haven't read that because I was busy on all of this. I don't think he recommended alternate language. So I'm comfortable approving it as is, because I really don't, I unless you want to give me a nanosecond and move on to something else, and I'll quick scan the email to see if there was alternate language recommended there.
He didn't recommend alternate language. He said he was good with the language.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so is there a motion to approve Anne Louise's amendment to the select board policy on capital?
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Joan.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Joan. All in favor? Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Ms. Klushin?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi? Yes. Great. And we're done with old business. Keith, are you ready for the new financial statement, or do you want me to share out the warrants?
Oh, ready to go. Contained in your packet is my May 2020 financial report. The current balance I'm projecting is a $255,000 budget balance. It's an increase of approximately $35,000. We're now going to be closed for the last 2 months of the year. So this incorporates the many changes and many different accounts that have been impacted by the closure. Timing, and it's a big issue because I always come forward with I got copy paper and copy machines. Timing and the need of typical end of year purchases hasn't been really incorporated into this projection, just because again, not knowing a lot about going forward and how much money we're going to possibly try to carry forward to do some of these other initiatives. I'm just in an uncomfortable spot. So I'm comfortable with the 255. I'm just uncomfortable what the heck to do with it at this stage. So the major changes at this point, our COVID costs are up a little bit. Our legal services for the school committee, that's for everybody, is unfavorable. It's also a little high right now due to ongoing need. Our department heads, our non-supervisory department heads, is favorable due to a resignation. Our substitutes are favorable due to closure. Transportation costs, both contracted and fuel, are favorable due to closure. The heating of buildings is favorable due to closure, and utility services is favorable due to closure. So a lot of good things all there with regards to favorability. A lot of bad things being closed. So we'll give and take there. So if you have any questions, we're good. See ya.
Okay. No questions. I think we're all budgeted out. All right, I'm going to share with you, I have signed some warrants. The first one is a school bill warrant in the amount of $115,771.37. Cafeteria school bill in the amount of $1,809.76. And those were the two that I signed. Okay, next, our next open session is scheduled for June 2nd.
2020. Dawn, you're shaking your head at me.
I think you said June 2nd. Did you mean June 4th, a Thursday?
Yeah, it's incorrect on the agenda. It is June 4th.
June 4th. Thank you, Dawn. I was reading the agenda, sorry. Is June 4th. Do we need to meet next week? I'm trying to be mindful of everyone's time, and I've got a lot going on next week. So I'm looking for some.
Well, so I have a question. Oh, my video's off. Really sorry. I was trying to sneak my dinner in. So the question was related to the technology purchase.
Right.
There's a couple of ways to handle this. So specifically around the the devices for the teachers and the students that Dan is concerned about lead time. I don't want to suggest that we have an entire school committee meeting to vote on that. And technically, it's sort of, if there's room in our budget, it can fall within there. They can go ahead and do this up to a certain amount. Keith can explain this. We talked about it today, about whether the committee actually needed to vote the specifics of those two numbers. Or we can, as a committee, decide, no, we would prefer to, weigh in on that. I'm just worried about the 2 weeks and waiting because I know Dan needs to make a move on this. So, Keith, you want to elaborate a little bit?
Obviously, again, we do have some favorability and a huge need for technology. And from a capital perspective, we're unsure what the town will be doing as a recommendation in the third week in July, which still wouldn't necessarily be enough lead time for us to be able to fully outfit the teachers as we need to. So at this point in time, it's a risky proposition for us to wait on this and not take advantage of something that we can take advantage of. Again, it could be that it's going to cost us the opportunity to have capital pay for it, but at some level, with a pandemic, is this how we're going to handle it? So again, it's obviously a school committee decision on how to handle it. I'm just concerned, as Anne Louise expressed, as well, of the timing of the acquisition, in addition to the fact that even if we do, hopefully go forward with town meeting in July, whether or not we'll be able to get capital as part of that.
Does it make sense for us just to vote it now? And we can preliminarily, and then we can change our number if we have to.
We can definitely do that. Wait until July isn't an option. That's
yeah.
So we can vote a number now if everyone wants to do that based on what he's got right now, and there may be some adjustments that we could deal with favorability.
Doing that. I just don't want anybody to have to hold up.
Right. And Anne Louise or Lisa or Andy, has anyone talked to our colleagues over on the FinCom about this?
Yeah, they were in the meeting.
And they recommended?
They understand, they totally understand that waiting isn't an option. And there, like I said earlier, there may be ways to, I'm getting a good Daniel text. Thank you, Daniel. He says, sure thing. It's what I do, mitigate risk. Okay, wait, so what he's saying here. I don't think there's going to be opposition there. Let me put it that way. They were in the meeting when we talked about it.
Oh, I'm sure there wouldn't be opposition. I just, can we have a retroactive capital?
Possibly. They can't commit to that without, first of all, we only have bonds. We don't have.
Right. Okay. As long as that dialogue's open, that's all that.
It is open, and Tina was in the meeting too. It's tricky because the capital process after the 1st of July changes a bit too. So, and with this capital policy, there's some debate around who says what and where, but I think we're going to get support. Let me put it that way.
Could I offer a suggestion? I don't think Peter or I have had an opportunity to talk to Dan or Keith about any specific changes to the capital requests. And I'm not sure we've had that level of specificity discussion even with the budget subcommittee. So I think if we did this on June 4th, that might offer an opportunity to provide some specificity without going too late. It's only 2 weeks from today. But because I wouldn't even know what number to pick because I'm not sure what changes Dan is considering because I haven't been privy to those conversations.
And I could work with that, but, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anne Louise.
Forgive me. Brad, well, I'd certainly appreciate that. I do know that Keith met with Dan. Can you maybe shed some light on it that would give a little more information to Brad and Peter?
The volume of machines hasn't changed. Comfortable cutting back at the high school just because their machines are not as old and some have been replaced for the teacher stations. The 6th and 9th grade he was still advocating for, hoping to use some of the ones that we had saved from the 75 that we got as part of the COVID piece from the town, or the town agreeing to having us purchase that, to backfill some of the lower grades Chromebook needs. So that was the gist of it. He still had to work on pricing and things of that nature and check his supply chains. He was going to be doing that over the next couple of days. I know that. So it's still a work in progress. That's absolutely true. But yeah, that's where we sit right now.
So if everyone's comfortable with June 4th, I'm fine with that. I do have a question, though, that hasn't been answered yet. The town administrator sent me a message that I shared with Keith and Brad and Anne Louise and Andy and Lisa that the school committee has been invited to call into the select board meeting on either Tuesday or Wednesday to talk about capital. So you guys had a meeting and
it was to talk about the 1/12 budget, not capital.
Yeah, which we can do. We don't have a 1/12 budget right now other than 1/12 of the FY20 operating budget, which would be the baseline, or that plus the 0.55% times 1/12.
Are we planning to call into that meeting? I say we, the collective we, because I should get back to it.
I mean, I'm happy to call in. What, is that Tuesday night? It's right. It's going to.
I don't know if they moved to Wednesday because FinCom's on Tuesday. I'm not sure. I need to look it up, and I'll definitely send you a message. But I just wanted to ask while I had you here.
Actually, forgive me. It's been one big blurry meeting, but I feel like Tina may have brought that up very quickly in our subcommittee meeting, Lisa. She may have mentioned it. Andy, do you remember that? Anyway, happy to be there.
I think our plan was to do that, but she left the meeting before we had the chance to do that.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay. All right. So with that being said, I don't think there's need to hold a meeting next week. I don't think we have anything urgent unless I'm missing anything. Now's your opportunity to raise your hand to that. No? Okay. So our next meeting will be June 4th, 2020, remote participation. With that, I wish everyone a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Can't wait to hear how everyone celebrates. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved by Cynthia.
Seconded by Joan.
Moved by Cynthia, seconded by Joan. All in favor. Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Listupnik?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Shaughnessy?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. It is 9:45. The meeting is adjourned. Happy Memorial Day weekend, everyone.
Happy Memorial Day, everyone.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy. Have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.